Okay, welcome. Today we're going to talk about collecting data on pressure ulcers using a safety cross. And this is in preparation for the Pressure Ulcer Collaborative, which will be beginning in March 2017. So just introductions, I'm Mike Carton. I'm a scientist working in the Measurement for Improvement team in the Quality Improvement Division.
I'm Deirdre Carey, a statistician, also working in the Measurement for Improvement team.
So just to talk briefly about what we're going to cover today, really what I want to do is give you just enough information to get you started measuring pressure ulcers on your ward. And how we're going to do this is we're going to answer 4 simple questions. What to measure? What's the principal rationale behind it? What to measure? We need to make sure that we're all measuring exactly the same thing. And when to start measuring? Time is the essence. So we'd be looking for people to be starting their measurement for the beginning of February. And Deirdre's going to talk specifically then about the how to measure aspect using the safety cross. So firstly, why measure? Well, in order to know if a change is an improvement, you need to measure. And this is the essential question in all quality improvement projects. The Pressure Ulcers to Zero Collaborative is based on the Breakthrough Series Collaborative model by the IHI in the US. That's the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. So what will happen is, as you progress through the collaborative, you decide that you're going to introduce new processes or implement an intervention like a care bundle or something like that. And really what you need to be able to do is to know if those changes that you are introducing do result in an improvement, do they make a difference? In order to know that, really the question is a reduction in the number of pressure ulcers on your ward. So that's what to measure. The overall aim is to reduce the number of ward-acquired pressure ulcers. That's what our main measure is going to be based on. So we're going to be counting the number of new pressure ulcers acquired on your ward each month. In this case, monthly data is good because we think you're likely to see at least a few pressure ulcers over the course of a month. And that's how the safety cross is structured to help you collect monthly data. Start measuring. As I said, time is of the essence. What we're looking for is for people to have data for February 2017. So to do that, it'll be a case of setting up the safety cross for the February to be ready to go then. What it will do when you collect data for February, it will act as a baseline against which you can compare the data that you're going to collect actually during the collaborative and possibly after as well. So already I've mentioned that term baseline. We hear it quite a lot in healthcare, in science, and it's a general term. So I thought I wouldn't use a technical definition, but rather this is something that Terry Pratchett has written. And he said, if you do not know where you come from, then you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you probably are going wrong. So the part of that is particularly relevant for what we're talking about today. What this line does is it helps you to understand where you come from. How has your service performed up to now? So this baseline, that'll allow us as well to begin to evaluate if the changes result in an improvement from the very beginning of the collaborative in March. And just without a baseline, it's just a bit more difficult to do that. Talk about how to measure. We'll say in general, if you have data available already, then you should use it. Our experience is, though, that there isn't data collection systems or IT systems that hold the information that we're looking for the collaborative in existence already. And that's really why we're promoting use of the safety cross for this purpose. It's a simple tool. We're very conscious that people get asked to collate it for all kinds of things. So our basic principle is that the burden should be minimized so that it doesn't take up a lot of time for people, and it should be a simple thing. So really we only collect the information that we really need. Deirdre is going to talk about the safety cross then and how it will work in practice.
Michael. First of all, if we have a look at the layout of the safety cross template, in top left-hand corner we have a little table where the month, year, the ward name and the hospital name which your data will relate is recorded. The safety cross itself is a visual tool. That's because you're going to be filling in the days with different colours as appropriate to the type of scenarios you're going to face in relation to the identification of pressure ulcers. On the left indicates that we will be using 4 colours. The first one, green, will be completed or filled into the box when you have no new pressure ulcers identified on that particular day. The blue relate to pre-existing pressure ulcers, patients coming onto the ward. The green will refer to situations where the patient is coming from outside the hospital, either from own home, a care home, or another hospital. The blue one is somebody coming onto the ward with an ulcer, come from another inpatient ward within your hospital. And the red will be completed when you have a new pressure ulcer identified on your own ward. The colour legend then indicates that we need other information to do with these new ward-acquired pressure ulcers. We need to record the date the pressure ulcer is identified, the grade of that pressure ulcer, and where it is located on the body. You should print off your safety cross and get ready for data collection in February. Would suggest that your team agree on when you're going to complete the safety cross, who is going to complete it, and where you're going to keep it or display it on the ward. So just go through some situations or scenarios that you might face throughout the month then. The slide here shows a green called the 1st of February. So that meant that on that day you didn't have any new pressure ulcers identified on your ward. Similarly, no new ulcers, so green colour is used again. On the 3rd day in February, I have a new pressure ulcer identified on the ward. So I need to fill in red for that day. And I also need to put in the top right-hand corner the number 1, just to indicate that it's just one new ward-acquired pressure ulcer. In the bottom left, I will also record the details for that pressure ulcer as the date, the 3rd February, grade 2, and on the right heel of the body. After several days without any new pressure ulcers identified from the 4th to the 7th, on the 8th I have ward-acquired pressures identified again. So colour in the box red, and I put the number 2 in the top right-hand corner of the box. And in the table on the left, I need to record details for those 2 pressure ulcers. And both of them are grade 1 on the left elbow and 1 on the right elbow. I might add that this case, this may well be the same patient. We are recording the number of new ulcers, not the number of patients. February, I have a different scenario now. I have a patient coming onto the ward, a tour within the hospital, probably from another ward, and with a persisting pressure ulcer, so it's code blue, and I put the number 1 in the same place as before in the top right-hand corner, but I need to record any further details for pressure ulcer. As a pre-existing ulcer in a patient coming onto the ward again, this time it's a patient coming from outside the hospital, so it will be coloured yellow, and the number 1 in the top right-hand corner. Again, I don't have to fill in any details for this pressure ulcer in on the left-hand side. A few days then, from the 15th to the 23rd of February, they're all green because new pressure ulcers were identified on those days. On the 24th, I have new ward-acquired pressure ulcer identified, so exactly the same as the 3rd of February. I colour in the day as red and put the number 1 in the right-hand corner, and we're to fill in the details in the table on the left. This time it was a grade 2 on the left hip. On the 6th, then, we have a scenario where we have different types of pressure ulcers. One is a pre-existing one, a patient coming into the ward from another ward within your hospital, and the other one was a ward-acquired pressure ulcer. So in that case, I have to fit the 2 colours into the box for the 26th of February. So half of it will be coloured blue and the other half will be red, and will indicate the number corresponding to each colour in the top half of the box.
Just on that one, Deirdre, what would happen if we had a yellow, a blue and a red on the day then? How would we look on the cross?
Of course possible that you could have all 3 scenarios. So I would suggest in that case, as you will have to fill in the 3 colours, is to half the blue that's there and put yellow into the bottom half. And if it's one yellow pressure ulcer, then you need to put the number 1 in the block of yellow as well.
Right.
So I chose the month then with 2 days of green colour. That means I had no further pressure ulcers identified for the month of February. So in total for that month, I have 5 newly acquired pressure ulcers. So to get started then, you need to print off your safety cross and decide, as I said before, who is going to fill it in, when you're going to fill it in, and where you're going to keep or lay it on the ward. When you have completed the safety cross for February, you should bring it to the first learning session scheduled for March. And if you have any queries in relation to the completion of the safety cross, you should contact the team at ulcers to 0@hse.ie.
Thanks very much, Deirdre. Yeah, so we can see that the safety cross is definitely a simple visual tool for us to use when we're collecting this kind of data, and all you need to do it are your coloured markers and a printout of your safety cross. So when we're reading this then at the end, I suppose the number we're concerned with for the collaborative is that number 5. That represents the number of new pressure ulcers that are ward acquired that were identified in February 2017. Now, just to say again, there are 4 boxes that are coloured red, but remember on the 8th of February we had 2 new ward acquired pressure ulcers that day, and that's why the number is 5 and not 4. So just as a kind of a sneak preview then of, what are we going to do with this information? Well, each safety cross that you use to collect data is going to represent 1 data point on a graph that we're going to start to generate when we see you in March. So we'll talk more then about that but just to remember to make sure and start your data collection for March straight away for March as well, and you will be collecting that safety cross data when we see you on at the first session in March, and don't forget to bring along your safety cross February on that day as well. So just to say thanks very much for listening.
For your participation in the collective, and good luck with your